Hi everybody and welcome back to BI Navigation. In this short video we're going to have a look at how the numbers are calculated for the financial reporting, and we're going to have a look at why or how this number here is just a sum of the ledger amounts that we've fed, but this calculation is a division of these two. We have the foundations for that in our report structure where we talked about calc types and the parameters or the arguments that make them up, and we're going to have a little look in a little more depth into how that happens. I'm going to do that with a little demonstration here in terms of the measures that we're going to be using. We can see here that from our report table, from our report spreadsheet, we've got a calculation type, which could be cross-ref, could be KPI div, could be a number of things, which we'll have a look at when we look at the main formula in a moment. And in that report table, we'll have entered into the spreadsheet, well, this needs to divide whatever number is in row number 5, rep key number 5, it needs to divide that by whatever is in row number 3, and we've entered those two numbers into the spreadsheet. They've come to here. If we have a measure that says, let's work out what MA Calc 1 is, we can see it picking up the gross profit here. If we have a measure that says what's Calc 2, then we can see here that it's picking up the number in row 3, and then we write into the code, into the DAX formula for a KPI div, divide one into t'other, one into the other, and produce the percentage. In a cross-reference situation where we're going to be looking at row 147 and picking up whatever that number is and returning it back to here. That's fairly straightforward because it's just a simple one-to-one calculation. Spaces we'll look at in some depth a little bit later in another video, but we'll go through the line amount measure in a moment and look at what's going on in there. But first, let's have a look at MA Calc 1 and MA Calc 2. So MA Calc 1 is there at the top. It says, well, let's go and have a look at all the ledger numbers. Let's go and add those up. And then if it does that on this line, it will find nothing because there are no ledger numbers for report key number 6. It's a calculation. So therefore we need to expand the context of this row 6 to look at all report lines and look at where the report key number is Calc 1. So look at where the report key number is this number here, is Calc 5. Similarly, Calc 2 is exactly the same as this, but with Calc 2 here. And so having got Calc 1, MA Calc 1 and MA Calc 2, we can then divide one into the other and get the correct result. So that's a key concept of expanding the context or stripping the current context away and applying the all filter there to get the number we need for the KPI that we're working out. So let's now go look at the whole of the line amount formula. Now this looks very complex. I'm assuming that there's a basic level of DAX knowledge here when I'm talking about this number. If you don't have sufficient DAX knowledge, then I'd recommend Enterprise DNA as a good learning source to get some basic concepts in play. Concepts of context, filter context, row context, all those sorts of things are very, very well explained by Enterprise DNA. When you've done that, if you're new to DAX or new to Power BI, then this formula here will be quite self-explanatory. So I'm going to go into the middle bit of this first. This is where we are really calculating the line amount, and we're going to have a look at the calculation type that we're on at the time, that the row returns at the time. So in this row it's returning nothing, in this row it's returning KPI div. So that's what we're looking at here. And if that's blank, if there's nothing in there, just add up what's in the fact table and put that number in the box. If it's KPI div, let's go and pick up Calc 1 and Calc 2 that we spoke about a minute ago and divide one into the other, returning blank if there's an error, and then if we're working out a percentage, multiply it by 100. If you recall, there's a percentage marker in the structured table, and if that's 1, then we're going to multiply this by 100. Otherwise, we'd end up with 0.35. We could overcome that another way with some formatting and so on, but I just thought this was the easiest way to work it through. If we've got a cross-reference, then just go and pick up the number that is in row 147. Straightforward. If we're looking at cash flow, go and pick up the MA Calc 1 again. MA Calc 1 on all the cash flow numbers will be cross-referencing working capital, stocks, debtors, creditors, those sorts of things, to pick up those lines. But we only want, excuse me, we only want the movement of those during the year or during the period. So we need to ignore any brought forward amounts. If you recall from the previous video, we know that our brought forwards are flagged with a 1. So we're ignoring the 1s in this piece here. Opening equity, we need to show on some reports what the opening equity is. This time again, we're adding through the ledger amounts, but we're this time looking at the brought forward is 1, and we're looking at the first fiscal month of the year. The first fiscal month of the year looks at the dates table where the fiscal period, the period number is 1. Balance sheet PBT is again a calculation of MA Calc 1, which should be cross-referencing the PBT that we saw in the visual a second ago, and it's going to look at that with by looking at all the departments that we're looking at. It might be the case when you're a user here that you've got just 1 or 2 departments filtered and not all of them, which is fine, but when you look at the balance sheet, it would then be out of balance. So by putting all departments in here, whatever you've got filtered, if you filtered down on 1 or 2 instead of all departments, then the formula here will ignore that. Closing equity, similar idea here, where we're adding up the total closing equity, and again we want to look at all departments. We need an equity filter. This filter's here. It's saying, well, I'm worried about existing shareholders' funds and profit before tax. They're the only 2 lines I want to look at, and the DAX formula will add those up and return the amount. Space I'm going to talk about in a later video, because that needs 2 or 3 minutes of time just to explain how the spaces appear. And then when we've got all of that, we need a result, which is that line amount that we've already calculated, multiplied by the signage that we've put into the structure file. Is it a plus or a minus? Let's manage that accounting signage issue. And if it's round thousands, we've also in our report structure told the structure that yes, when we click on round thousands or round pounds, that we want that to divide by 1,000. And if we haven't, it's not. So if it is a round thousand divider, i.e. there's 1 in the column in the report structure, then it will divide by the round thousands. Otherwise it will divide by 1 and therefore return the same result. And the final return statement returns this result, and we have a good base for calculating any financials. We could expand MA Calc 1 into, or MA Calc 1, MA Calc 2. We could make MA Calc 3, 4, 5, depending on the complexity of the maths and the KPI that you want to return. I hope you've enjoyed this video and some explanation of overcoming the myths of reporting financial data in Power BI. And I'm looking forward to the next one. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye bye.